right. So welcome everyone. Today I have a very special guest, Clayton Bryant. I hope that I pronounce your name and surname correctly. And today we will talk about Delta Module 1 experience. And Clayton kindly decided to share some ideas and some experience that was there. And possibly it will be useful for you as well. So how are you, Clayton?
A little nervous about being on camera, but excited to share my experience with other like-minded people.
Lovely. And with that being said, I would like to start with the first question. How did you structure your preparation for Module 1 in general? And when did you start? So let's say, how long did it take you to prepare?
So I would break it up into three stages. There would be the time before taking the course, and then during my Delta course, and then pre-exam. And so about 6 months out from the exam, I started doing research. And so I was looking online, trying to find out what really is involved in taking Delta. And there was a lot of information. And it was quite overwhelming. And I went on YouTube to see what books were being recommended. And I actually saw a lot of your content, and I looked for the books that were being repeatedly recommended, and I purchased those books. Then I had an honest look at what I didn't know. So going into Delta, it's a step up from CELTA. What do I really think is going to push me to my limits? And in which case, there was going to be grammar. And so even before my course started, I started to go back through and learn all of the grammar that maybe I haven't used for a long time. And so I did this around August this year, and I spent about a month before the course learning about grammar and doing some basic reading. And then I applied for International House or to International House Bangkok and was lucky enough to be accepted. And so pre-course, I'm purchasing the books, I'm doing some reading, I'm finding out that my grammar knowledge is not as good as what it should be. But during the course, my tutors would recommend books. They would talk about a topic that maybe I didn't know too much about. They would recommend a book. Instantly, I would ask, do you have the PDF? And if they had the PDF, they sent that to me and I would print out the book. If they did not have the PDF, then I would purchase that book from a website over here. And so pre Bangkok, International House Bangkok, I'm doing everything by myself. During the course, I'm following all the instructions provided by International House and by their tutors. I'm doing all of the required reading that they advised me to do. And there was quite a lot. And then pre-exam, I am reviewing all of the content that I had learned. And so I have sort of three stages, but that final stage, Julia, before the exam, as you know, you only get a really good understanding of the exam prior to the exam. And for 2 days before the exam, I locked myself in a hotel room and just studied and studied and studied and studied. And I remember going to Qingdao, which is where I took the test, and taking, I had a huge big bag of luggage, and inside were very few clothes, but just stacks and stacks of books. And for 2 days in a hotel room, it's just review, 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 review. And so three stages. And the final stage is where everything is mounting up. The pressure is mounting up. The pressure from, I think it's internal, the pressure you are putting on yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you're going back through the books and trying to remember everything that you've learned, and that combined with the pressure on yourself makes the experience extremely challenging. But overall, I think if you're going to go into Delta, you really do need to prepare. You really do need to listen to the people that are around you. And before the exam, you need to work incredibly hard, and you really do need to focus on everything that you have learned. I mean, you can't put it down and relax. You need to keep your foot on the throttle and just keep going. But those 3 stages were basically how I prepared.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing. That's really invaluable. And something what I take for myself from here, a key takeaway that if you want to focus, just get rid of any distractions possible. And the idea with the hotel room is definitely the thing that our viewers might borrow because that's absolutely a game changer. You don't have all your homey things that can distract you, no people around you, just you, your books and your papers that you need to prepare and what you need to revise. And that's exactly what you need before the exam, couple of days before the exam. And maybe you can share how much time you spend daily, if it was daily, or what was the best frequency for you in your prep for DeltaModuleOne.
Okay. So if I look at my whole week, basically from the time that I would wake up till the time that I would go to sleep, it's part of your brain. I mean, it's part of your, you can't get those thoughts away that you need to study. I would exercise and I'm running, I'm listening to music, but there's Delta there. I'm teaching in the classroom, I'm going through whatever I need to do, but Delta is there. And so it becomes this overwhelming, non-stop part of your daily life. That anytime you have any free time, you kind of have to push things aside to say, look, it's time I need to study. And ideally, I would map out my week and I would say, I'm going to study from this time to this time. But what I found was that for myself, what I would do is I would read, and quite often it's in one ear and out the other. And so I have to keep on reading, keep on trying to recall. So I would work in the morning, in the afternoon, if I've got time, all right, we're studying again. In the evening, if I've got time, I'm studying again. And it didn't stop. And I had to do what I had to do in order to remember what I was reading. And maybe that's something I would change. I'd look at my week and map things out. But when I was going through Delta, I just, and it's, probably not the best way of doing things, but I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. And so I just I just studied and studied and studied and studied and studied, and you know what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. That feeling that you can't stop, and any single moment you have free, you want to fill it with something useful. What else haven't I done for Delta? What else do I need to do in order to pass? Yeah.
I mean, I'm waking up in the morning, Julia, and I'm jumping on the phone to look at Quizlet, A to Z of ELT, and I'm going through the terminology, and then, okay, it's before breakfast. Let me get 20 before breakfast. And so it's just one of those things that if you go into Delta, if you are living and breathing Delta for that short period of time, you're going to do well. And that's how I approached Delta.
If we recap, we can say that you were thinking in the dimension of Delta rather than just dedicating some hours to Delta, right? So you try to fulfill your day with everything really and integrating it. This is actually the idea that I also share in some of the workshops back in time. Also, I shared with those who were about to do the Delta paper 1, paper 2. I told that, okay, if you really want to prepare, some people ask, how can I prepare? I don't have time. So this is exactly, we are all human beings. We don't have this time. And I recommend it. Okay, look, you have this time because you work with your students, you go to the classroom and you actually give them those tasks, and you have this rationale behind why actually you give those tasks to your learners. But you just start thinking in this delta dimension, and it helps you understand deeper. And actually, I think that you might agree, it improves the teaching process every single step, little by little, because you start believing why you actually do that and why you actually give this particular task to your learners, what you want as an outcome and how they can benefit from it. That's a really good thing, I believe. It's when you combine your work, if you have this opportunity and if you see this opportunity, because having an opportunity and seeing an opportunity, these are two different things. What I see this year, people see the opportunity, but they don't use it. And if you see this opportunity and if you use this opportunity, despite the fact you can be really very busy, you can be a busy teacher, methodologist, that's something what just comes to you. And if you notice it, you can use it like what you've mentioned. Thank you. One more question I wanted to ask you that I didn't share with you actually, but I wanted to ask you right now. What did you think first, and what were your first actions? What did you do after you completed the exam, after you left the room?
So I took the exam with our director of education, and we finished the exam and we went back to the hotel. And I remember we were sitting in the lobby, and it was just this immense feeling of blur. Just this, my brain had stopped working. It was just, it's done. I mean, I could hardly formulate a question. I mean, it was just blur. Um, it's over, and it's a sense of pride, because if you have gone through that process, you know how hard you had to work. You know how many times you were pushed, how many times you would pick up a book but want to close the book, but you had to push through. How many times you maybe you had to say no to things that you wanted to do in order to do something that was going to improve your life.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling that I I always wanted to be better in terms of, a better teacher, a better educator. I am now following my goals. I'm achieving my goals. This is an important step. So you have that immense feeling of, you are exhausted, but you also have that immense pride that you're going to where you need to go. You're on your path. And so it's a good feeling to finish, but it's wonderful to look back at all the challenges you had to overcome along the way.
Absolutely. I totally related that as well, Clayton. That's so important to not forget what you came through, what you had to sacrifice at some point, because in any case, you didn't spend your time with your friends. Maybe you didn't go out. Maybe you just had to dedicate all your free time. Not maybe, but for sure, you spend all time. One thing about paper one and paper two, did practicing actually with past papers or mock exams help you? If yes, how did you do that? How often did you do that? And how did you manage your timing during paper one and paper two?
Right. So if I look at my time during the International House Bangkok course, every week we would have EPs. So we would do some part of the exam, and we would be given feedback. And there are sample exams that you can do, and there are guideline answers, and they are incredibly helpful. I think if you're going to do Delta, you need both. You need the sample papers, and there are not many, and they do have, guideline answers and exam reports, some of them, not all of them. But if you mix the sample papers with a course and you have actual tutors giving you feedback every week, it's incredibly helpful. I don't know if I would advise someone to go through the Delta process without going through professional training. The tutors that I had were unbelievable, extremely helpful. And it's really difficult to get your mindset into that Cambridge way of thinking.
Yeah.
How
Into the
do I
framework.
explain something in a way that a Cambridge assessor will go, correct? And many times I would do my EP, my exam practice, and the feedback that I got was not good. And so, which is really helpful. And so then I would have to look at what I was doing. Now, during my course, my instructor, one of the instructors, he gave us a PDF file that had a lot of the past papers, and it went back a number of years. And so what I actually did was there were 800 pages of exam papers and reports. And so I got them printed out. And so I've got everything here. Now I have the sample papers from the Cambridge website, and my tutor was nice enough to give me these papers here. Now, a lot of them are really old. So at that time, the structure was different.
Yeah.
And what you had to do in the exam was different. So you can't approach the task the same way, but you can practice. And not all of the papers that he gave me have guideline answers. So you're kind of in a dark for a lot of the activities. But the way that I found, which was really helpful, was to find a sample paper that had the guideline answers. You would then do paper one or paper two or an activity and fill out your answers, and then analyze with the guideline answers how close you got and what mistakes you made. And I spent a lot of time doing that. Sample paper, activity. Now I'm a little older, so I forget things really quickly. So I can go back to an exam paper or an activity, and I may have forgotten, or maybe I've learned a lot since, so I see it with fresh eyes. But they were invaluable for me moving forward. I mean, as I went through it, I mean, just incredible. There was a lady who took the exam with Michelle and myself, and she had not practiced with the sample papers. She had not gone through and got professional training. So I can't imagine that, I imagine that she had a difficult time. And, anytime if someone asked me about Delta, look, go get professional training, go get those sample papers and practice as much as possible, get as much feedback as possible. And it's going to help you to achieve your goals.
Yeah, totally. That's very well said, Clayton. And I totally agree with all those really meaningful ideas and recommendations, because in fact, you need to treat it as a framework. If you don't know the framework, it doesn't matter how good your teaching is. It doesn't matter if you know the methodology and how well you know the methodology, and whether you studied it at university, and whether you have this master degree in linguistics. So the most important thing here is to understand the framework. And if there is a framework, there are the rules, and everything is regulated. And when only you understand it, when only you understand the logic behind it and how you can approach it, and you try different strategies and see which strategy works with you, then only you see, oh, okay, I can actually manage it. It's actually not so difficult. And I can, of course, it requires time to prepare. But let's say if we talk about predictability and the validity of the whole exam as itself, right? We can see that, yeah, it makes sense. Yes, it's actually something what speaks for itself. You can see that there is logic behind that. And actually those changes that were applied to the papers, I personally like them a lot. It made the paper too more dense and at the same time more logical. And yeah, I would say that it's something what improved. All those changes are for better, I would say. And yeah, so the most important thing here is to see that you have this practice with paper one and paper two. And if you have this exposure to previous papers, definitely go for it and definitely do that. And the course itself, in my view, is essential. And not only
Hmm.
from the perspective of the knowledge you get there, first of all, you get a network of interesting, like-minded teachers and educators who actually can share something not within Delta they mentioned, but way above and beyond. And that's one thing that I took as well. The second thing is that you keep the pressure, this positive pressure that is actually keeping you on the tip of your toes, but in a positive way. And you feel, oh, okay, I need to complete this assignment. I need to complete that. I need to submit it for my tutor. And if I want to receive feedback on time, and if I want to receive feedback in general, right? So, and in this case, it's you feel that that accountability that matters as well, because we are human beings. Sometimes we get lazy. Sometimes we see, okay, the priorities shift depending on where we are in life. But when you are in this environment and you are surrounded by like-minded people and you are a part of this community, it's way easier to achieve the target and to feel that you are actually ready and seeing where you are in comparison to others. But this comparison shouldn't be destroying, because I heard here and there people comparing, oh, you know this so well, you're brilliant at it and I don't know it. So this sort of comparison is not very healthy, I would say. It's better to say, oh, right, James knows this, and how did he actually learn it? What helped him? And where is it in this exam? Where it lands? How can I actually work with it in my exam? And whether I need it, because maybe my strengths, what you've mentioned, Clayton, you mentioned that you need to know your strengths, and I absolutely agree. If you know your strengths, you go directly to the strengths, and you don't try to make your weakness your strength, because sometimes it takes longer time. And if we talk about this strategy, some of our viewers will watch it and maybe there will be not so much time to prepare, and then the strategy matters a lot. So then thinking about your strengths and going for those strengths that you have and using them in the exam is definitely the priority number one. And working with those weak points, of course, at the same time is the thing. But thinking that if you know something, you can go and use it without understanding the framework is definitely not a good strategy at all. So
You know,
preparation.
you mentioned, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No, no, go
but you,
ahead.
you mentioned strategy. And I think there's a few strategies that I sort of used as I went through Delta that I think are incredibly helpful. And if I can share some with you, that would be
Oh, that would be
great.
really helpful.
Yeah.
Please share.
So one of the strategies that I used was as I went through the Delta training, I made sure that I was engaging with the tutors. And so I think this is an incredibly important part of learning. We shouldn't be passive. We should be active learners, even though it's online, but we should participate, ask questions. If we do not know the answer, we can ask for clarification. If we are put into breakout rooms, it's, we need to communicate. We learn from each other. We need to help each other. And so being that active learner and getting the most out of every input session is a strategy that, it comes back to help you. You learn more. And then before the exam, I'm in the hotel room. I've got all the books and the sample papers and everything laid out. And after a while, everything becomes, overloading and you're reading, but you're retaining nothing. And so one of the strategies is the old phone. So I sat down, I visualized what I was going to do. So, paper one, which activities am I doing first? For each activity, what do I need to look at? Let's say it's paper one, task five, we're analyzing genre, we're looking at clocks, right? content, layout, lexis, organization, grammar, style. Um, Cambridge designed their exams in such a way that you don't have time to think, right? It needs to be automatic. You're creating automaticity in the way that you approach each task. And so I walked myself through using the voice memo. Clayton, you're opening the paper one. You're looking at this activity. This is what you're looking for. You're going from this activity to this activity. Now, common features are this. You're looking for this, this, and this. Remember this. Look here, look here. We're going into this activity. Pay attention here. And I went right through for paper one. Then I did the same for paper two, and I went right through. And at those periods of time where I was overloaded preparing for the exam, I would lie down on the hotel bed, I would push play, and I'd just close my eyes and visualize. Then
Fantastic.
before I'd go to sleep, I would do the same thing. Now, your brain doesn't sleep as when you go to sleep, so you're subconsciously working your way through the exam. And what I found was that when the time came for me to take the exam, everything was quick. And there are times when you get stuck and you're sort of thinking, okay, no, I know what to do. I'm stuck here. I need to go here, and I'll come back. And so it's making sure that you really understand your strategy. And when you go into, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? If you have prepared to the best of your ability, you feel confident going into something that is challenging because you know you did your best. And before the exam, your hands are shaking, right? You know what it's like. But deep down, you know you couldn't have done any more. And so that strategy of using my phone and engaging with the teachers and other people on the course, and then, having a playbook for paper one and paper two, really, really came through. Now, I don't know if I passed, and I'll find out in 2 months. Um,
Fingers
but
crossed.
I,
Oh, I hope that
I do know where my weaknesses are. And it's definitely paper one, task five, paper two, task two. Those two tasks are just, incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Well, let's frame it that way. You found those challenging because some of our viewers say, "Oh, paper one, task five was something that I started with, and it was so easy." But let's say it depends all the time. You never know which is easier for you until you try. And in your case,
Mm.
paper one, task five, and paper two, task two were, let's say, challenging.
They were the two that stand out, yeah. Um, but when I go back to my whole preparation, I knew where my weaknesses were, right? Grammar's going to be the weakness. I started learning that before anything else.
Yeah.
And now my grammar has definitely improved. But the test itself, because of everything that you have to learn, um, it's, I would say I am so much better as a teacher, um, as a CEO of a company, um, as a father, because I help my daughter, because of everything that I went through with Delta.
Fabulous. I think that this is a very nice point where we can actually share some things how you can use Delta One. And you can use Delta One not only in teaching your students, not only for your professional career, but also for your personal life. It teaches so many different lessons. It teaches so many different insights that you can apply. And what you rightfully mentioned in business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I design curriculum, which is an important part of my job. One of our company values is constant and never-ending improvement. And so we have this belief in the company that we should be better today than what we were yesterday. And next year we will be better than what we are now. And my job, being the leader, you might say, is to make sure that I do lead the way by taking on these big challenges and then passing on what I have learned, what I did well, what I did not do well, and there's a lot of that, to the teachers and helping them. And so it's incredibly helpful when you have this mountain of an exam in front of you, um, but you're able to climb that mountain. You are able to pass on to others everything that you have learned, either pass or fail. It doesn't matter. The main part is that you try. And I remember for at least 2 years, Julia, before the exam. I mean, I wanted to do Delta, but I was unsure. Can I do it? And I put it off. And I would advise other people to not put it off. I wish I did it sooner because the benefits are just huge. You find yourself in the classroom teaching better. You see things that you didn't see before. You're able to answer questions from your teachers and colleagues in a different way. It just makes you more professional, and you shouldn't be scared. And you need to um, believe in yourself. You can do it.
Absolutely. It couldn't have been said better. Thank you so much, Clayton. That's definitely some inspiration for many of those who would like to do Delta Module 1. And
Mm.
for those viewers who would like to ask the questions, I think that we will, if you agree and if you don't mind, we will be able to respond to those in the comments down below, because I think that people will find it extremely valuable. And it will help them to take the right decision, not to hesitate, not to doubt, not to self-doubt, but to believe and to see that the sooner you take the action, it's all about action. The sooner you take the decision, the sooner you take this responsibility, and the sooner you become accountable for everything in your life, the better and the easier. I wouldn't say the easier, but the maybe the more interesting your life becomes, and your teaching experience improves every single day. You become not only an educator, you become a more experienced person, and you are the one who people come to ask for advice, because they see this work and they see this wisdom that comes. It comes not from nothing. It comes from all those sleepless nights and papers that you've read and experience that you had with your students. So for now, Clayton, I'm incredibly grateful for your experience that you shared with our viewers, and thank you so much for your advice that you shared. And of course, I wish you to have a wonderful educational and managerial journey, because you are, as far as I can see, you are a CEO. You are combining those two. Do you actively teach as well some classes right now?
I do, and I teach the Cambridge Think books, which, if you look back at paper two, task two, you have to analyze course books. So it's coming in extremely helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you so much that you shared your experience, your view on that. And I hope that we will see each other soon in another video.
Very much, Jude. Thank you.